word law article, which, as most law articles go, they're not exactly easy reads. So I wanted to synthesize this into a 34 slide presentation for y'all, and that's a lot. So if y'all have any questions, write them down, shoot them at me at the end, and we'll get going there as well. But my article is called Heroes Get Remembered, but Legends Never Die. And really the goal is to properly recognize the contributions of Negro League veterans. All right, so I want to take y'all back a little bit to 2024. There were a few big things that happened around the Negro Leagues and its history in 2024. First of all, you had Negro League records that were integrated into the MLB stats. You also had the game in Birmingham to honor the Negro League veterans as well as Willie Mays. But there's a third thing that happened in between that I think fell through the cracks a little bit. This was a Negro League financial assistance program, an expansion to what was already in existence. And that was announced around that same time. And the goal of that plan was to support living Negro League players. Now, I put some statements up here. Top one is from Tony Clark, the MLBPA director, and the bottom one from Commissioner Manfred. Tony Clark says this is long overdue and it is gratifying. Said it's another example of players using their collective voice to bring about progress. Commissioner Manfred called it an opportunity to further recognize their contributions. And it is. It's not a small thing that this happened. It's certainly a step in the right direction. But I think there's a small problem with this, and it's the word living. You know, the MLB at that same time, they came out and they defined that major league period of the Negro Leagues from 1920 to 1948. So if you sit there and you think about it, the question became for me, and part of why I wanted to write this article is, well, how many of those players are actually living at this point that can actually benefit from this program? And so I did some research, and I needed to be set on the right path. So I sent out some emails, and Sean Gibson, who Donna mentioned, actually replied to me and was kind enough to spend about an hour with me, just kind of setting me straight and giving his input into how this article could go, the directions I could take it in. And pretty soon into my research here, I saw that what the MLB said about 50 additional living players that could benefit, well, that wasn't real accurate. And in fact, I found an article from the MLBPA that said that there were only 4 players from that major league period that were still alive. And that's even more outdated at this point. As you can see, it says Willie Mays is still with us here, and Clyde Golden has passed away as well. And we see the guy on the left here, that's Ron Teasley, who actually had his birthday yesterday and turned 99. And you see on the right is Bill Greason. These are the only 2 players that I was able to identify that are still living from that major league period of the Negro Leagues. Now, what I have for y'all, the article, it's a proposal. And before I get into that proposal, I want to just address a question that Mr. Gibson had for me, and that was why? Why am I writing about this? Why is this important? And first of all, it's not necessarily the proposal that it's important. While I believe in it, spent a lot of time on it, it's something that I think is a real issue and attention needs to be brought to it. That's more the goal here. And then as for why I wrote about it, this is a piece of Texas, and I am from small town Texas, Donna said, so if I sound a little funny, that's probably why. This is the Texas Triangle. It's an area of Texas that's about 70 to 75% of your people live in, your business lives in, except for your oil out in West Texas here. This is where I grew up. And as you can see, I grew up in Fayetteville, Texas. I like to tell people that it's a town of about 200 folks and 200,000 cattle. And by the time that you leave, you get to know the name of every single one of those cattle. And so I grew up that our town was too small to have a football team. So it didn't really fit in a whole lot in Texas, but we really just cared about ranching. We cared about working, and the folks cared about baseball as well. So grew up playing baseball. I like to think of myself at the time as really a student of the game. And then as I got out of small town Texas, I noticed I didn't really know as much as I thought I did. And part of that was because of some folks that I had never heard about. I want to highlight those folks right now because I think they're really important to not only Negro League history as a whole, but to this proposal as well. First person, Rube Foster, born in 1879 in Calvert, Texas, another small town. I mean, he's the founder of the Negro Leagues as well as the person who taught Christy Mathewson to pitch. That's no small feat there. Second is Smokey Joe Williams, born over in Seguin, Texas in 1886, who Ty Cobb said was one of the best pitchers he ever faced. Number three, Tris Speaker, born in Hubbard, Texas, 1888, also the person who taught Larry Doby how to patrol the outfield in Cleveland. Let's see. Number four, oh, I skipped it. No, number four here is Louis Santop, 1889 in Fort Worth, Texas. Great catcher, and the guy who taught Biz Mackey a little bit about catching as well. We'll get to him a little bit here. All right, Andy Cooper, born in Waco, Texas, 1897, carried the Detroit Stars, and he's pictured here in a Monarchs jersey, but carried both of those teams on the mound. Great pitcher. All right, here's Biz Mackey, who I mentioned earlier, 1897 in Luling, Texas. And, of course, you see him there in the Newark Eagles uniform. Power hitting catcher, maybe only second to Josh Gibson at the time. Bill Foster, another Calvert person here, and Rube Foster's brother, born in 1904, maybe the best lefty to come out of the Negro Leagues as well. 8, another person you may recognize there, Willie Wells, part of the $1 Million Infield from Austin, Texas. Also revolutionized the batting helmet and taught Jackie Robinson in Austin how to turn a double play there. Number 9, I mean, he's from 10 minutes from down the road from me, Hilton Smith, born in Giddings in 1907. And then number 10, Ernie Banks, 1931, born in Dallas, Texas. These are 10 people that are in the Baseball Hall of Fame from this small area, well, relatively small area of Texas here. 10 people that are in the Hall of Fame, and 9 of these people have something in common. They all got their start in the Negro Leagues. And then 8 of those guys, with the exception of Tris Speaker and Ernie Banks, had another thing in common. Whenever I thought of myself as a big baseball fan, I had never heard of any of these folks. And whenever I found out about it, I thought it was a huge problem. So I got to educate myself on this. And that kind of brought me to the article here and brought me before y'all. And before I really get into the proposal that I'm going to talk about, I want to mention why, to me, it's important to be able to talk to y'all about this topic. Because, number one, I didn't really recognize this before I started reading a little bit more. The color barrier actually started in Newark, not something I was really familiar with at the time. But the moment that Fleetwood Walker and Cap Anson walked out on the field together in 1886 in Newark, that's when it began. I didn't really recognize that. And of course, that led to the rich history that y'all have with the Newark Eagles between these two guys that you can see here, Willie Wells and Biz Mackey as well. It really doesn't get any better than that when you're talking about the $1 Million Infield. And then I think this quote that I have in the center here kind of perfectly encapsulates why I wrote this article and why Negro League history is so important. Because baseball is a rich man's game. Rupert had his beer, Wrigley had his gum, Abe and I have only each other. I think that shows the heart that these Negro League players had, why they played the games, because they loved it, and why it was so important to them and why it's still so important to us. And so that kind of brings me into the proposal that I'm going to give to y'all. And we're going to combine a little wills and trust law as well as the basic agreement, or the CBA, for Major League Baseball. And we're kind of put that together and see if we can do what Commissioner Manfred says he's going to do in recognizing the contributions of these players. First, it's the intent. And really, this goes back to the 2 quotes that I showed y'all at the top, that it's the intent of the Major League Baseball Players Association in conjunction with the MLB to further recognize the contributions of players in the Negro Leagues. And that's really what this is about. It's what it was about in 2024, and that's what this is about that I'm presenting to y'all today. It brings us to eligibility. So something that's important, I'll talk about why it's important in a second, is this policy, this proposal, it has to run as parallel as possible to the benefits that are offered to current MLBPA members and their alumni. And we'll get to why that is, but in order to have it run as parallel as possible, we have to set up some parameters. And to set up those parameters, as you can see, I've used the qualifiers that the Negro League Statistical Review Committee kind of put forward and put there as a way for a player to be included in the Major League Baseball stats. All right, and so to set up a Negro League service time, to establish that, I'll use these qualifiers. You can see a few lines of it here. It's just the number of games, number of plate appearances, number of innings pitched that a player has to have in any given season, any given league to be included with guys like Tris Speaker, guys like Ernie Banks that I mentioned earlier. So to kind of give an example, because it's kind of hard to understand at the top without any background, anything like that, I've given y'all Jesse Williams here, all-star middle infielder for the Kansas City Monarchs, really important part to some of the best teams in Negro League history. And so you can see his stats there, and we'll break those down a little bit. Starting in 1939, you can see that he played in 24 games, had 71 plate appearances. Well, if we look at the qualifier sheet that the review committee has given us for the Negro American League in 1939, we see that he's about 51%, just a little over halfway to a full season of service time is the way that we're going to use this. We go to 1940, we see that he played in 37 games, just a bit shy of he's played in 38 games, just a little bit more than the qualifier needed to have a full season of service time with those qualifiers here in 1940. We go to 1941, we see that he played in 36 games, just one over what it would have taken for him to qualify for the Major League Baseball stats, and just one over to qualify for the service time, a full season of it, that we're going to be using for this proposal. If we go to 1942, we can see that he has cleared that 26 game mark by leading the league in games at 36. That gives him another full season. So we're at 3.5 full season service time. And if we look at 1943, we see that he doesn't come as close to getting that 100%, but he is over half. So we'll just say, for the sake of the article here, we'll put him at 4 full seasons of service time. And that's going to be important whenever we get to the eligibility, the levels to this program. All right, I told y'all that this has to run as analogous as possible whenever we have to set up the benefits that we're creating this proposal and the benefits that are available to MLBPA alum and current members as well. And that's because of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 under Title VII. So this actually stems from a real case. It was a suit brought by a group of former players represented by Al Moran here, old shortstop for the Mets. And they sued the commissioner's office of Major League Baseball, sued Bud Selig here for the 2004 and the 1997 iteration of this Negro League Financial Assistance Program. And so the basis of their suit was they're talking about, well, this is a new set of benefits that is being opened up based solely on someone's race. And they were saying that that is a direct violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Title VII. Instead, the Ninth Circuit, that's the area, California, everything in the west of Texas there. Ninth Circuit said that no, this is not discriminating based on race. Instead, it's just really trying to even up the benefits that are offered to former Negro League athletes to those that are already available for MLBPA alum and current players. So it isn't characterized as a new benefit in any way. So that's what we have to aim for whenever we're putting together this proposal. It has to be something that's very close and almost mirrors the benefits that are already available. And that brings us into the beneficiaries of this program. And really, this is the meat and potatoes. This is why it's important, because we only have 2 players that are still living, as MLB said, that could benefit from their financial expansion. And so the beneficiary of this plan under this proposal would be their family that's left over. It could be a surviving spouse, children, any heirs at law that they may have. That would open them up to possibly benefit from this proposal as well. And that's important whenever you're talking about only two former players that are still alive. That plan isn't really helping any. It's other than the two folks, it's not helping anybody else. And the people that have already passed, folks like Willie Wells's family, Biz Mackey's family, they deserve to have their ancestors' contributions recognized as well. And so that's really the meat and potatoes, like I said, is being able to show them that we appreciate what they did as well. And so we want to open up this proposal to their spouses, to their children, to their heirs at law, so that they can benefit. And something I put in here, if there aren't any heirs at law, if for whatever reason there's no family left over, if a foundation could be substituted whose goals align with the intent of this policy. And that intent is to recognize Negro League athletes for the contributions that they made to the game. And I think it's important that that foundation is chosen by the MLBPA Pension Committee representatives. This is a small committee of current Major League players that really sit on issues that benefit and hurt the pension, and that having them interact with the history and the folks that are trying to preserve it in the Negro League community, I think is a huge positive boon that you really can't replace. All right, so here's the benefits. This is the money, this is the funding, this is all of that. And I've structured it in three different tiers. You have a full benefits package, a half benefits package, and a quarter benefits package. And we'll just start with number one here, and we'll take them in turn. So before we do that, I want to mention that these levels, the money, everything that we're talking about, it's based on precedent. These aren't just numbers that are made up. And for them to run as analogous as possible, they have to come from something that's already been out there. They have to come from precedent. And so we'll look at that precedent. That precedent is the 2004 plan, the 2004 Negro League Financial Assistance Program that set forth $833 a month for 4 years to be made available for former players. And that was a much smaller group of former players than what the MLB is trying to do here. So that evens out to about $10,000 a year. And whenever we adjust that for inflation, that's about $15,000 over 4 years. So doing that, we put together a full benefits package that's meant to mirror the 10-year plan that's currently for former players, the full pension, the holy grail, as they call it. And those numbers are $60,000 across 4 years for 4 years of service time. Now, I understand that 4 years is a lot different from the 10 years that are required in the major leagues, but I think it's important that 4 years is the standard, because you think about it, the Negro Leagues, as it's defined now as the major league portion of the Negro Leagues, lasted from 1920 to 1948. We're not talking about something that started in the 1800s and still going today. We're not talking about something where we're still watching these games, and we're not talking about a community with a huge infrastructure that allowed their players to play as long as they could. So 4 years, and you consider the lack of records that we unfortunately run into with some of these things, I think 4 seasons there is the perfect mark to put and have these players, their family members, receive a full benefits package. Okay, so that brings us to tier number 2. This is a 2-year plan, 2 years of service time, of course, payouts equaling $30,000 across 4 years. And so this is meant to reflect the 4-year pension plan under the MLBPA's current standard, kind of the middle of the road package that's available to MLBPA alumni. And that's what this is meant to mirror here. And then we'll talk about the last one as well, the quarter benefits package. So this is the only way that I've deviated from the MLBPA pension plan substantively. This is a creation that because the 4-year package does have healthcare benefits, that's not really something that is part of what we're trying to do whenever we're talking about former Negro League players and their families. So I've created this quarter benefits package in order to kind of reflect that. And it's a one-time payment of $15,000, and that is across 4 years. That $15,000 comes in 4 years if you do the monthly payments there that I've made available. And then finally, this is just this is the funding portion of this. It's important that it's a joint initiative of the MLBPA and MLB, and it would be funded the same way that MLBPA pensions are. The only difference here, of course, we got player dues, competitive balance, tax funds, but the only way it's changed is charitable contributions from MLB and its teams. Of course, you don't want that to be a bulk of how it's funded. That's just to recognize what MLB has done and its teams have done in the past to help out these players and the past benefits programs that they've had, like those ones in 97, 2004 that I mentioned earlier. And this is the memorialization of what I'm talking about. Basically, this is a more precedent for you under case law that makes it to where this is it's legally immaterial for this topic if we don't have these parties signing off. And so we have this where it's required that both parties sign off here. If I can get back. Both parties sign off on it and recognize that this is something that they want to do if they are going to do what they said they were going to do, and truly recognize the families of Negro League athletes and their contributions. Finally, this is just a slide here of Bill Greason. If I do nothing else today, I hope that I inspire you to go and read Bill Greason's SABR bio. It is, I mean, just the things that this man has been involved in, the history that he's seen, the work that he's done as a person, I think is more than deserving of any proposal that I can put forward, anything that anybody can put up. But I just put him up here to kind of illustrate the need for something like this. Mr. Greason's well over 100 years old at this point, and when he does ultimately pass, his family deserves not only to have some kind of recognition for his contributions as his service in the military, as his service to God as a pastor, but also his service in the Negro Leagues and MLB as well. And I think that this proposal perfectly just kind of puts together why this is important for his family, for other families of athletes who have already unfortunately passed away and had to tolerate so much and promoted only the love of the game and so much more. I think Mr. Greason is the perfect illustration, and he is not the only one. His family is not the only one that deserves that. So please go read his bio, and it is truly something to behold. Now, as Donna mentioned, this article is something that I put together. It is in the Texas Tech Estate Planning and Community Property Law Journal. It has also been published by the State Bar of Texas in their journals. It's a legal article. There's a lot of law in it. Not the most fun part, I will say, but I really do believe this is a proposal that is important, that more people need to know about, this plan that the MLB has, which there haven't been any public details made clear as far as I can see. So I really do appreciate the opportunity to kind of put this before y'all and hopefully just get y'all to think and just to raise the awareness a little bit and recognize some of those players as well. So thank y'all. I'll take any questions that y'all may have.
Victor's got his hand up.
Yeah, thanks. This was outstanding, and it's frankly shameful, but perhaps not surprising that MLB is being so cheap about this. Do you have a sense of how much it would all cost, what the aggregate cost would be if everybody was included?
That's something that I wanted to do, and that is something I do talk about in the article. The big thing right now is the MLB has allotted for, or MLBPA has allotted for about 12,000 pension plans, I believe is the number, and that number is going up each day. The highest estimates that I can find of players that actually played in the Negro Leagues and that's played. It doesn't meet any of these service time parameters or anything like that, is about 2,000. So if we were to make the MLBPA number 14,000, say, and then you look at their profit of $31 million in revenue that they had just a couple of years ago, I don't
Billion, you
think
mean billion,
funding
right?
would be huge problems. Say again?
You said million, you meant billion, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So I think, my second question then is, how do we advocate for this? Because, there's clearly not a lot of the Negro Leaguers aren't here to advocate for themselves.
Mhm.
And so, you know, baseball's not going to do the right thing without some nudging.
Right.
So some publicity might be really good.
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of what I wanted to do here by writing the article. Of course, when you hide something in a legal article, most people may use it for to keep warm on some of these cold days like this. But I really hope that something like this can be something that brings it to people's attention and nudges Major League Baseball in a sense.
Well, thanks. I mean, I think it would be really helpful to have some total cost estimates,
Right.
because if you can show that it's a fraction, which I'm sure it is, of the total amount that they're spending on pensions, they maybe could be shamed into doing the right thing. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. I'm just going to check the chat.
I think Jerry may be right there. The Dodgers may be able to help out with the funding of it.
Not anymore, because they just spent $240 million for one guy for 4 years.
That's deferred.
It's still $240 million.
Yeah, I know. No, I mean, look, it really, like Brenden said, it's a drop in the bucket, right? And it really is shameful. But I mean, all of us here, I think our hearts are all in the same place. I mean, it's shameful across the board, right? If you look at the representation in the National Baseball Hall of Fame, you look at it's just across the board, right? I mean, we could really turn this into a bitch and moan session, but I want to focus on the positive, and like Victor said, how do we advocate for
Well, and
change?
to follow on that, I think one of the things here is, how many of us had ever heard about this before this presentation? B, even if we'd heard about it, it wasn't obvious that only 2 people are eligible. And if that story got out, that to me, that's the hook, right? That they're making this big deal, but they're really only giving, they're going to spend $20,000, $30,000 to help these 2 living players. That's an embarrassment. And somebody at SABR must have a contact who could get that story told in a popular press journal, not a law journal. And I'm looking at virtually at the Negro League committee members.
Well, look, we do our small part to get the story out there, and hopefully, it falls into the right hands, whether it be somebody who's just Googling and happens to see this recording on YouTube, or she told a friend and she told a friend and she told a friend. All we can do is hope, do our part to get the story out there, and hope that it catches on. Phil, I see you unmuted. Did you have something?
Yeah, a couple of thoughts. One, trying to reach out to Tyler Kepner of The Athletic, who was a longtime baseball writer and has been pretty sympathetic about writing about the Negro Leagues at times, but also Joe Posnanski, who has written a lot about Buck O'Neill and the Negro Leagues, and has a very good platform that might help send this to a wider audience, and a very committed and devoted audience that might really push for this.
I think that's great. What was Tyler's last name that you said?
Kepner.
Kepner, Kepner. He's at The Athletic. He was at the New York Times for years. and he writes about some broader issues a lot of times in the day-to-day
Yeah.
player trades and stuff like that. So he might be a possibility.
He's technically still at the Times because they bought the Athletic.
He's actually not technically still at the Times because the Times does not count the folks at the Athletic as their employees.
Right.
As
Yeah,
a Times person,
that's just like what the MLB's doing. That's a monetary thing.
yes, as a Times person myself, I understand. I see what the Times is trying to do by keeping the Athletic as a separate entity.
And I saw, Charles, your idea there in the chat. I think that's a great idea, and I very soon I will be having about 20 copies of this book to send out, and I'm hoping to send it straight there to Kansas City and get it packaged up if it can survive the snowstorm right now, and get it there, and hopefully follow up an email or something like that as well.
Paulette, you've got your hand raised.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to thank Brenden for a wonderful presentation. Also, just sidebar, my husband is a retired law professor, and we've been to Texas Tech Law School twice. So I'm the only person in Norfolk, Virginia that's been to Lubbock twice, but that's okay. But it was all good. But I came in a little bit late at the meeting, and I think I heard you mention Sean Gibson. He's the grandson of Josh Gibson, right?
Yes,
And
yes, and
so
he was
he's
such a
Great
in
huge
Texas.
grandson.
help.
Oh, great grandson. Okay, got it. And he's a good friend of the granddaughter of Norman Turkey Stearns. She goes by Vanessa Ivy Rose on Instagram. She's got a great podcast. And I was wondering, now, does Mr. Stearns' family get to be eligible for this, or is he a different generation, or what do you think?
Yes, they would. Yes, because, well, if they're from the 1920 to 1948 portion, which Mr. Stearns would be, then yes. And I do want to make it clear that this proposal is not meant to replace any that are already in place. It's only meant to run beside it and hopefully form some kind of pension plan that can be made available to families. But yes, both Vanessa and Sean were huge helps in getting this off the ground, as well as some of the grandchildren of Bill and Rube Foster as well.
Awesome. Well, congratulations, and I'm glad that I
Thank
learned so
you. I
much from you.
appreciate it.
Paulette, I'll just give a little plug before I get to Charles's question in the chat there. Vanessa was a guest of ours a while back. So if you take a look, if you go to our link tree, or if you go to SABR Videos, I think it's SABR Videos, SABR Virtual, or just shoot me an email, whatever. I can get you the link to Vanessa's presentation that she had with our chapter.
And Donna, I saw your comment in there for the book. I'll make it even easier on y'all. What I can do is I can email a copy, just a document of it to Donna, and then for anybody that wants to give it a look, that's that'll have everything in there. If y'all want to give it a look, she can send it out to y'all as well.
Absolutely, I'd be happy to do that. Okay. Any other questions? Now, unfortunately, Victor brought it to my attention while I was yapping away at the beginning of this, that the early part, I don't know when it stopped recording and when it started again, but it was really early in your presentation. So we've got all your presentation there.
That's okay. I can always do it again too.
Well, we need to get other chapters. We need to get other chapters to do this. I want to get you connected with some other chapters and get it out there more. I mean, it's great that it's on YouTube, and that's good as a backup, but we don't get this, this live interaction that gets lost a little bit.
Right.
And okay, Michael, I am going to just jot down at Gmail. Okay, cool. Okay. Oh, or Brendan's just going to send it directly to you. There we go. Hey, that works too. So just if anybody is interested in connecting with Brenden, shoot me an email. You could do it at saberelysianfields@gmail.com. or if you want to know more about what our chapter is offering or what we may have offered in the past, or want to take a look at our newsletters, whatever. SABR members and non-members alike, right? We're one giant happy baseball community, and our goal is to celebrate and educate and learn more about and hang out together. It's just all about baseball in as many different ways as we can enjoy it. And certainly a big part of that should be showing respect to those who on whose shoulders we stand and who made the game what it is today.
Hey, Donna, you
Yeah.
mentioned earlier that at the Yogi Berra Museum, Claire Smith is going to be one of the panelists.
Weather permitting, yes.
Yeah, well, okay. I hope by then we're done. But that would seem like a logical person to talk to about getting the story out.
Yeah, probably that day probably wouldn't be the right forum for it, but I agree with you.
Well, I mean, it's just a
Yes.
sort of, hey, Claire, I want to follow. Here's something we heard about. I want to follow up. You know, it gets a lot more attention than an email, right? So you don't want to get into an in-depth discussion, but hey, Claire, did you know that only two players are eligible for this chintzy plan? That's an attention grabber to me. I just find this so reprehensible on so many levels. It's just, like I said, not surprising, but
yeah, it's that's just it. Not surprising. Just like I was saying to Brenden off camera, and I know some people who are in this room know this, and some don't. You know, Hinchliffe Stadium, which is one of the few Negro Leagues ballparks that's still standing, is less than 11 miles from where I live, and I used to park next to it all the time to go photograph the Patterson Great Falls, and it was in such a state of disrepair that I made a horrible assumption that it couldn't possibly be anything important.
hey, somebody
And
just posted a great idea, Jane Levy.
okay,
That's a great idea.
That's a fantastic idea. I actually just met her when I was in DC. I think she'd be all over this.
You're welcome. If she becomes commissioner, I want to work for her.
Get in line. Get in line. I think a lot of people would, but
we have to fix the stuff that Rob Manfred did.
Brenden, did you get? There's a couple of chapters. Dennis from Milwaukee, who's a great chapter I've presented to. They've got a great. I think Mary Shea is in the room also from that chapter, and probably others. And I'm not going to start naming names because I'm going to end up offending somebody somewhere along the way. But so Brenden, this was absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. We will stay in touch. And anybody who's looking to connect, just get in touch with me, and I will make sure that happens. Hope to see a bunch of you next month once things are scheduled for our Gabay Award winner. Keep in mind, those who are SABR members who are in here, you can be a member of as many chapters as you want. So if you want to keep in touch with what's going on here, just add SABR Elysian Fields to your list of groups that you belong to, and you will get all of our announcements, all of our newsletters. The more the merrier.
Is anybody going to the Muth Museum event in person on the 7th? Who's on this call? I guess not.
Okay.
All right.
All right. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Stay safe, stay warm, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.